So the song that we just heard in the room is a song called Bird's Eye View. And one of my ministers used to say that sometimes what we actually need is a God's eye view. So that, may I have some lights, please? Thank you. I tell you, Albin takes one day off. So, sometimes what we need is a God's eye view. We need to be able to step back from whatever's going on and let ourselves do what is the theme for this month, which is pause for guidance. We pause, we take time in order to say, what am I reacting to? What am I responding to? What's going on around me that's trying to get my attention? You know, at one point in my life, I had a car named Joseph. The car's name was Joseph, the amazing Technicolor dream car, because he had a coat of many, many colors. Some of them kind of a nice rust color, very natural, because that's what it was. And the adventure was, will it start when I get in it? And over the years, I have had many different cars. And one of the things I learned is there's this little red light that comes on. Don't ignore it. It might be something to pay attention to. I had my my younger brother, teach me how to drive a stick shift. Mostly because I was supposed to leave the next day for Vermont with my brand new car that was a stick shift that I didn't know how to drive. I had faith even then. We ended up ignoring the lights on the dash, but pulled over to the side of the road with huge black smoke coming out. And we said, bye-bye, clutch. That was the end of that transmission. It was a $50 car, seriously. It was on its last legs, which is why we used it. But sometimes, have you ever noticed that sometimes we ignore the little bits of guidance and the little warning signs, and we end up with what we lovingly call the cosmic 2x4 upside the head? This is well known across our movement that the cosmic 2x4 will get you. Because first you get that little tap on the shoulder. See, now I have my dream car. I call it Thanks, Mom, because I bought it with my inheritance from my mother. So TM, thanks Mom, flashes this little sign at me saying maintenance required soon. Soon. And it just kind of shows up and then it goes away. And then it shows up and it stays there. And then it shows up and it won't go away no matter what I do. So we get these signs in our lives that it is time to pause and take a break and allow ourselves to get a bird's eye view or get a God's eye view of whatever is going on in our lives. Now, when I was growing up, we always took vacation. I believe we took it in August because that was right before everybody went back to school. Back then, we started in September. So we have this thing in our culture where we take a break right before we know we're going to have to go into overdrive. Has anyone been stuck in overdrive? For a while now, maybe? My cars, it used to be that my health would tell me what I was doing and my body would reflect where my head was. I found that it was much less painful, although sometimes more expensive, to have my cars do that for me. And so at one point in my educational career, I was working a full-time job as a supervisor. I was helping to found a center, and I was doing a full-time master's degree in ministry. And I found myself, I lived in San Diego, I found myself on the 8 headed right into the city, stuck in overdrive with no brakes. Man, if you don't think prayer works. But I got the message. The following day, I called my sister and told her I had gotten the brakes fixed. And she said, "Really? What did they do?" I said, "I got new tires." And she said, "Kathleen, that won't do a dang thing for you." I said, "They're on the new car." See, when we get these signs, sometimes we have to make a major change. And sometimes we just have to adjust. Sometimes we just need to go get a tune-up. And that's actually the name of this talk, is time for a tune-up. This is what happens when you pay attention to those little red lights and those flashing signs on your car and on your life before they turn into smoke coming out from under the hood. By the way, it doesn't work to just leave the hood closed and walk away and come back when it's done smoking. This isn't a smoke break, guys. This is a problem. So what I think this teaching does, although it isn't obvious to most people, is it helps us to find that space between stimulus and response, where it might have been in your past that something happened and you immediately reacted to it. What this teaching does is help you find that space in between what happens and the reaction, so you can pay attention to whatever's going on in your heart and mind and body, and maybe you don't have to react in a way that will not be helpful, but you can take a response that is proactive and do something, have it turn into something good. Sue Scherer, who is one of our practitioners, is famous for saying, "Only good will come of this." So something goes kerflooey, everybody looks at Sue, she says something good will come of this, and then we react. For those of you online, her name and phone number are on the website. So what we're doing when we get a tune-up is we're moving up in consciousness. We're making sure that everything is functioning optimally and going into that space between stimulus and response and putting a pause in there. Now, as it turns out, PAUSE is an acronym. And it's in the world of psychology, which I have lived in. I think I still have an apartment there, so I'm allowed to talk about it. It's important to take a pause. PAUSE stands for perceive, ask, understand, strategize, and evaluate. That doesn't sound much like science of mind, but it really, really is. It sounds more science-y than mind and spirit. So perceive. That is where in that space between stimulus and response, we notice that our buttons have been pushed, or that something has gone a little sideways in our lives, and suddenly our abundant self has an overdrawn bank account. And so our insides don't reflect our outsides. We stop and look at what is really going on in our world and in our lives, our personal lives, our state lives, our national lives, and our lives on this planet, the life of this center. We pay attention, because if you cannot see it, you cannot respond to it. Often I hear people in this teaching say, "Well, don't talk about it. You're just calling in more of it." I'm like, no, you can't talk about it, which means it owns you and is driving you. If we can't talk about money here, because that's just not polite, what that tells money is that it's not worthy of being spoken of, that we're afraid of it or we're not welcoming it. The centers that are most transparent about their money are the ones that are the most affluent. We talk about tithing. We talk about the spiritual practice of tithing. We talk about all of these things because it's important that we not be forbidden to ask any question or bring up any issue. In our center, if you want to know how we're doing financially, all our financials are out in Sibley Hall in a white book. They're all out there. And if you don't know how to read a P&L or a balance statement, ask a board member. Practitioners can probably do it too, but they're mostly there and will pray over it for you. The next one is ask. We make the assumption that we know what the problem is when we first see it, right? Oh, there's black smoke coming out from under my car. I should know what that means. No, I don't. I know nothing about what goes on under my hood. I can check the oil sometimes. I used to know where to put the wiper fluid. Hence the black smoke, yes. Somebody in the room just said that. I know not to put lighter fluid in there. How's that? I know how to fix the brakes. You know, I got my Girl Scout badge, so I'm pretty sure that I could fix a tire if I needed to. Not that I ever will. We have to ask the questions to make sure that what we are seeing is what is actually going on, and not all of our fears or our prejudices, meaning those things we are used to seeing. Like I have a belief system that if I am eating a sandwich with corned beef and sauerkraut on it, it probably has Thousand Island dressing. That's my prejudice. You have to have those three things together. And if you don't, it's not a real sandwich. You should use bread too. So we have to ask the questions. Where are our blind spots trying to get our attention? See, that little red light comes on in our lives. Those things that are painful, people step on our toes because something is being brought up to be healed. That is the only reason things go kerflooey. Because something is being brought up to be healed. And if you were not ready to heal it, it would not come up. You'd probably smush it back down and ignore it. So we ask to make sure that we are all dealing with the same issue. And then we have, the U is understand. Do I understand somebody else's point of view? This is where we in this country, and sometimes even in this congregation, could use some work, including me. I do not understand what it's like to be gay or lesbian. I would have to ask in order to empathize with the person who is having an issue with me or within the center, because I can't assume I understand. I am not in their skin. I am not a woman of color. It would be arrogant for me to assume I understand what all of the people of color are dealing with, or that any one person of color represents all of them. And so I have to make sure I can empathize. Very clearly, though, we're empathizing, not sympathizing. This is, oh, poor baby, is sympathy. Oh, let me pet you on the head and tell you how sad it is that you're so broken and sad. Empathy is, I am doing my part to see the world through your eyes so that I understand why it is, what the meaning of the event is for you. I had the supervisor where I worked and her assistant, the director actually, went and tried to cash a check. And they were turned down because they were black women. Now, this was back in San Diego. It was a long time ago. But it never occurred to me that they would see it as an issue of race, where my question was, well, did you have ID? Of course they did. They run an entire business and had for years. They knew what they were doing. So my need to ask questions and my need to understand in order to have an empathic response allowed me a peek into their world. So once I am sure that I understand what's going on, once your practitioner is sure that they understand what belief system you came in the door with that you want to work on during your session, once all of that is very clear and the both parties have an empathic understanding of the other's view of what's going on, then you can strategize. Then you can decide, well, I think I'll pull this car over and stop driving it. You can sit down with your friend who you just got into a tiff with and say, this is what I understand. This is what we're going to do about it. So from now on, I will not fill in the blank. I won't show up at your door without calling you first. I won't take the last of the half and half. I won't let your cat out. Now that I understand it's not an outdoor cat. So once you have a clear understanding of the real problem, the answer, a clearly defined problem contains the answer usually. If my real problem is, if I just think the problem is the smoke in my car, well, somebody else's car actually, if I think the problem is the smoke, I might just throw water on it. That's not good. That doesn't work, by the way. If I understand that the problem is I just used up the last of the clutch, then I will fix the clutch and not replace the whole engine. You see the difference? Once the problem is clearly defined and you understand it and you understand everybody's perspective on it, you have now the tools with which to fix it. And this is where we tune up. This is where we rise up in consciousness and say, rather than having this old belief that I don't know, or I can't fix that, or I am just going to be poor my whole life, or nobody loves me, everybody hates me, and I'm going to go eat a worm. You know, I'm not doing that awfulizing. Once I hear what it is I'm thinking and we understand what the problem is, we can use the tools of this group. Use the tools of new thought. Go to prayer. Write some affirmations. Call a practitioner. Did I mention you should call a practitioner? Or you could call a practitioner. They are there for you. They are there for God as you. And so we can use the tools of this teaching. If we don't actually use the tools, it doesn't matter that they exist, right? If we never go to prayer, it doesn't matter that Ernest Holmes defined a 5-step treatment that is affirmative prayer. If we never use the affirmation, or we do it in such a way that it's kind of hit or miss, and we affirm, you know, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and darn it, people like me. If we do the I'm good enough, and then afterwards we say, no, you're not. If we don't use the tools, it doesn't matter that they exist. Meister Eckhart once wrote, what does it matter that the Christ was born in a stable either 12 or 1500 years ago, if he isn't born again in my heart every day? If I know that I am the Christ, if I know I am anointed to do a thing on this planet during this lifetime, and I don't do it, does it matter that I was anointed? Does it matter that the Christ is within us if we do everything we can to throw a blanket over it, pretend we're someone else? Wear somebody else's name tag? If we will not use the tools, if we will not follow the agreements for the tools that we have in this congregation, then we don't really have that agreement then. And the tools don't matter. You have complete power over when your life gets better and how it gets better and to what degree it gets better. You have the power to take these tools which work. They absolutely work. And use them to create the life that you have dreamed of. When you dream of a certain type of life, that is your soul call happening. And if you have a clear understanding of something that is not in alignment with that soul call, then you can change it. Now, we don't stop with the strategy and using the tools. We actually use the tools, and then the E in pause is evaluate. Did it work? When I pulled over to the side of the road and we flipped up the lid, the hood of and let the olive black smoke out, I could evaluate that the frat boys driving past and screaming and celebrating us were not actually effective in fixing the car. I waved back because I'm polite, but I learned that throwing water, if that was my solution, that would not go well. But putting a new clutch in made the car better. Now, that car was falling apart at many levels anyway. So if you change one small thing, it might bring to your attention something else you want to go deeper with. It might bring to your attention that something else is coming up to be healed. How perfect is that? Now you know what to do with it. You take a pause and you look at it. And you really perceive it as it really is. And you ask and you understand. And then you strategize and then you evaluate how well it worked. That's simple. An idea in the mind of God takes on form. We have the experience. And then as we evaluate it and gain wisdom, we then start the process over again. That's the V. And there's a hook at the end of it to show that we do that over and over again. We are spirit having many, many different experiences. And within those experiences, we are learning and we are deciding whether we like it or don't like it. What is perfect for me may not be perfect for you. What is, lima beans and okra to me are awful. Other people actually eat them on purpose and like it. I am more than happy for them to have it. And so we get to evaluate. We get to take that space, take that beat, and take control of our own lives, take control of the conditions in our lives, heal that which is paining us, that which is dis-ease within us. That is the power that we have. And we do it through prayer. So I'm going to come down here. For those of you who are new, I should tell you that I always pray from here after service if I can, because it's a wonderful reminder at the physical level that each and every one of us is a Christ and could be doing this prayer. I happen to have the microphone, but within you is the same prayer. And so I ask you to close your eyes, go within if that is comfortable for you, or you can just do a soft gaze at nothing much. And we become aware in this moment. We perceive the presence of a power greater than ourselves. It is a power for good. It is omnipresent good, everywhere present. Omnipotence, all-powerful. Omniscient, all-knowing, good. It is the very energy of life itself, and it works according to natural laws. It is fully present right here, right now, in this room, and in the body, the cells, the ligaments, the truth of each and every person within the sound of my voice. It is being carried across the digital waves to everyone who is watching this, no matter when they see it. And so in this moment, in the full awareness of the presence of the divine power, the one and only power, that life that is good, I speak my word knowing that we are all part of that divine power. If God is omnipresent, everywhere present, it must be present within each and every one of us. And I call upon that power to speak my word, to speak a word of good, to speak a word of love, to speak a word of healing into all of us. I call forth, I stand witness to the truth of our being, which is our divinity, and I call forth the experience of that divinity, of that abundance, of that peace, of that love, of that joy, of that prosperity. I call that forth into our experience now, not because I'm creating it, but because I stand witness to what is already there. And I perceive it now. And resting in that, resting in a grander idea of what spirit is as each and every one of us, I release this word to the law, knowing that the law is going to move it into form. And so I call it good and very good, and so it is.